Hey there, Hyperfixation Nation. This is the Get Your Fix podcast where we chat all things fandom, good, bad, and ugly. I'm your host, Vaughn. Thank you for joining me as always. If you want to learn more about the show, you can check it out on the getyourfixpod.card.co. That's CARRD. You can subscribe on all your favorite platforms, and you can also reach me on any of my socials if you want to go and check that out. And if it's your first time listening, welcome. And if you've been with me since the beginning, welcome back. So this week, I am really excited to chat about some new things that I've been interested in recently. So I've been really leaning into that like nostalgia factor. A lot of what I think is attractive and alluring about fandom for a lot of people is that nostalgia. It's things that we grew up loving, that we've loved for a really, really long time. But something that I've kind of noticed in fandom culture that I don't love is that like intense level of gatekeeping by people who have liked things for a really long time. So like I try really hard not to be that fan. I talked a little bit about like the Big Little thing that I did on Tumblr with Fall Out Boy, where like post hiatus Fall Out Boy fans are being matched with pre hiatus fans and kind of like bringing them in. And I kind of take that approach to everything in my life anyway. Like, I really believe in being like a steward of humanity and helping people enjoy things and be a part of something, being really welcoming. That's really important to me and it's an important part of my story. So I think that something that I think is really cool is at my age being able to get into new things kind of for the first time because that doesn't happen to me that much anymore, and I'm not like geriatric. I'm only 29, but I'm pretty set in my ways when it comes to like things that I consume, and so it's really fun and exciting when I discover something new that I really like. So like a couple of things that I've gotten into over the last couple of years that I never really paid attention to before are things like Dimension 20 and like D&D in general. Like I didn't grow up playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's really been an adult thing that I've gotten into. So particularly Dimension 20, really got into Fire Emblem, Three Houses and Three Hopes, which has been really fun. I never played those games growing up. Was not a Fire Emblem kid at all. So like those are just a couple of things I've gotten into as an adult, which has been really fun and cool. And it's a great feeling to have that like spark again of like, ooh, this is something that I know I'm gonna really like. So I thought for this episode, it would be really fun to chat about some new bands that I've discovered. Because I'm particularly set in my ways when it comes to music. I pretty much stay in my lanes with the artists that I know and like. But over like the last, I want to say like 3 or 4 months, I have discovered a couple of new bands that I'm just really enjoying. Or bands and like solo musicians, just like new artists making music. And I wanted to share who they are and the type of music that they make and what some of my favorite tracks are. So kind of similar to my anime openers episode, I'm going to link a podcast kind of similar to my anime openers episode. I'm going to link a playlist, a YouTube playlist of some of the tracks that I've been enjoying from these new bands. And so before I get into who they all are and what I've been enjoying from them, something that is cool about this experience is that I have found every single one of these groups except for one from Instagram Reels, which is an unlikely place to find new music, I feel like. I hadn't really considered Instagram a place to find music per se. I will say I used to have a TikTok and I deleted it because I it was making me insane. Like the algorithm, like being a queer and trans person, I would just get pushed to like the most like disgusting crap on TikTok that I just didn't want to see. And so I deleted it, and I have found Instagram Reels to be way better for me, algorithmically speaking. It mostly just shows me the stuff that I want to see. So, like, I watch a lot of like ceramics videos, like people making pottery, like K pop videos, like men's fashion, all that kind of stuff. Like, so I really, really like Instagram Reels, but one of the features of Instagram Reels is the promotional tool, where you get promoted videos in your Reels while you're scrolling. And the algorithm has figured out that I will almost always click an external link if it is pushing me a 10 or 15-second clip of a pop punk song. So that's how they got me. And so most of these groups kind of fall in that like pop punk or like synthy house, like new pop sound. And I'm really, really enjoying them. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first artist I'm going to be talking about is a project called Wheelwright. And Wheelwright is actually just one guy. And his name's Jared. And I actually found Wheelwright from my fiance. So they showed him to me. They followed his previous music project, which was called Jared in the Mill, which was like an actual band. And then Jared broke off to kind of do his own thing. And we actually got to see Wheelwright recently at like this really small dive bar venue in Philadelphia. And it was so, oh my gosh, it was so good. Wheelwright is like totally my style of music. It kind of marries my nostalgic love of like country music with the like grunge and like the sad boy vibes and all of that good stuff. And so he kind of self describes on his website as Wheelwright brings a southwestern sound of pop and grunge from the sprawling desert city of Phoenix, Arizona. And that is totally his vibe. He's got the cowboy hat, the tight denim, big belt buckle, bolo ties, and the content of his music is it really like speaks to me. It's about like all of the laughter that you have in life comes with a pinch of suffering. So like kind of just like the way that the human experience can be painful and where to find the hope and the joy within that. And I really do kind of feel the spirit of the desert when I listen to him sing, just kind of like the sprawling, endless sameness, but then how it kind of shifts and changes at night. His voice is so beautiful. It like gives me chills. And I just love the aesthetic of his brand, of his tour merch, everything. So I've been really binging Wheelwright songs recently. He also remastered a couple of his Jared in the Mill songs as a soloist, and so I'm absolutely loving that. And he was so freaking sweet in person. Like he had a little meet and greet after where he was like selling merch and chatting, and he was so down to earth and normal. And if you know me, I've listened to this podcast, you know that I can get a little bit starstruck. Like even with like someone who's not like a blockbuster superstar, meeting someone that tours and makes music, like, I always just get a little bit nervous and have butterflies, even though I know they're just people, but, I just think that musicians have such a big impact on my life. So, meeting him, I was, like, really nervous, and he was so sweet and so handsome and kind, and I really hope to see him again. I hope he goes back on tour because it was really, really special, and getting to have that experience with my fiancé was wonderful, and I just feel like there's a huge sense of authenticity in what he's creating. And I have a lot of respect for somebody that has been working on their creative passions for such a long time and, is just continuing to do what he loves and making music that's authentic to himself. Like I just love that. So Wheelwright, also known as Jared in the Mill previously, but now Wheelwright. The 2 songs that I've really been binging from him recently are Nothing's Wrong and Three Dots. They both just, like, literally give me chills from the tips of my toes to the top of my head. They're beautiful, beautiful songs, so, I'll have those in the playlist. So Nothing's Wrong and Three Dots by Wheelwright. So the next artist I'm going to be talking about is called Sugar, and it's spelled SUGR question mark, which I love. I love a goofy kind of moniker situation. And Sugar is the stage name for an artist named Steven Suptic, I think is his last name, and he's from a comedy group called Sugar Pine Seven. And he was also formerly from another like music project that was called SourceFed, and so I actually don't know anything about Steven at all. I literally have only heard one album from Sugar. So I wouldn't say I'm like in the fandom, not quite as immersed as I am with like Wheelwright. So I've listened to their EP, which is called "Oh Death." This is, like I said, the only thing that I've heard from Sugar is the EP "Oh Death," and all 5 songs are so good to me. They're sort of that they have that like electronic like audio engineering quality with the pop punk soul and spirit. And so I really love it. It's really different from a lot of the things that I have heard recently. I think there's a lot of people like trying to cultivate this sound, but I think he's really nailed it. And this actually came out in 2019. So it's not new, but it's new to me. And I have played this EP on repeat over and over again. And I talked about this a little bit in the anime openers, but one thing I love in a song is when the lyrics are like hard and painful and like gritty, but the music itself is really bright and fun and hopeful and like a major chord. And Oh Death, the song, not the EP, but the song Oh Death really has that exact vibe. And I absolutely love it. But there's also something a little bit like almost like creepy about the lyrics that I really love, like kind of like an Avenged Sevenfold sort of thing, but with the sound of like metro station, right? So I really like it. The wordplay is really clever in all five of these tracks, and that probably comes from Steven being a comedian. And so I love a good poetic quality to song lyrics in the storytelling that feel a little whimsical. You know, you feel like you're being taken on a journey. It's one of the reasons I love Fall Out Boy, like very flowery language. Sugar has been in my playlist rotation for the last 2 years. Actually, I found them last year again from my fiance. Actually, they found them I think on a Spotify playlist at Starbucks or something, like really random. And that's what's so fun about this episode is that you never know where you're going to find your next favorite artist. And so, if you're someone that makes music, I think it's a good lesson. Like someone can find you anywhere, and I have been really really enjoying that. So, Sugar again, SUGR question mark. And I particularly like the EP called Oh Death. And I think my favorite song off the EP is called Make It Hurt, just because it's so fucking weird. I just love it. So definitely check that out. So the next band I'm going to be talking about is called Magnolia Park. And Magnolia Park is really cool because they are a BIPOC pop punk band project from Orlando, Florida. And I found them really organically, actually. So they weren't promoted to me on Instagram. I actually found them from a Instagram reel that someone had made highlighting BIPOC artists in the pop punk scene, to try and like reorient us to the origins of pop punk and rock in the US. So the genre was born from Black folks in America. And a lot of folks, particularly in the pop punk space, kind of forget that. They kind of think about it as like a sad white boy genre. And so it makes sense that people feel that way because a lot of white men in particular have kind of co-opted that pop punk space and made it theirs. But a lot of the like original pop punk like legends from the early 2000s who helped define the genre were people of color, even though people weren't recognizing them as people of color. So like I think about like Pete Wentz, who's biracial and people love to erase his black identity. Gabe Saporta is Latino. Ray Toro from My Chemical Romance is biracial. Like Travis McCoy is black. So it's always been, like most things, cultivated by people of color and particularly black folks. And so I cannot remember who the actual Instagram user was that made the video because the only thing that I took with me was Magnolia Park because I was so in love with their sound. And so there's not a whole lot of information about them. There's 5 members, and you can check out their website, magnoliaparkband.com. But I absolutely love Magnolia Park's sound. It again has that like classic pop punk quality that I'm really looking for. But it also again, all of these bands, what I think drew me to them is that they're doing something a little bit different that I feel like is an evolution of what was the early pop punk movement. So adding their identity and their sound and their voice into this pop punk genre. And so they also do some of that like activist music that I love that again I talked a little bit about on the Fall Out Boy episode, but kind of like building their identity and their passion into their songs to reach people. And so when I first found them, late I want to say late 2021, I had started listening to them like kind of casually, and I checked back in on them recently, and They have been signed to Epitaph Records, which is amazing. I don't know when they were signed to Epitaph Records. They might have been signed when I found them. I'm not sure. But I just think that's so freaking cool. And they have a song with Kellen Quinn, which I really love. It's called Love Me. Kellen Quinn's voice is just incredible. So I've really, really been enjoying them a lot. They have a new album coming out soon, I believe. But my favorite track for them is called October. And it is just, again, that perfect like quality of like pop punk hopefulness, sadness. I hate this fucking town. They have a couple of those things integrated into their discography that are more of those like predictable sort of song titles. Like they have one called Kids Like Us. They have one called The End. They have one just called Drugs, Desperate. So sort of, that My Chemical Romance sort of vibe. I think what's really cool is like if you listen to their discography in order, you can really hear the evolution of their sound in a really small amount of time. And they do a ton of really cool features too. So definitely check them out. Magnolia Park. All right. So the next artist I'm going to be talking about, his name is Lahar. And Lahar makes I guess you would kind of call the genre like synth pop for the most part. It's that like again sad boy pop that I love. And I've actually only heard one song from him, but like I said, this episode is really about like new discovery. And I just found Lahar literally last week from Instagram Reels promoting it to me, and it's his single called "Do You Think About Me." And I love it. So Lahar is based out of Atlanta. He only has 289 subscribers on YouTube, like literally brand new, I'm pretty sure. His first single, it looks like, came out like 2 years ago. So really fresh. And he is a songwriter and a producer. So he does all of his own stuff, which I think is really cool. Looks like he performs live in Atlanta pretty often. So I love his Instagram. He posts like singing clips on there. And yeah, he just feels very real and accessible to me. And I love to see someone pursuing their dreams. Like I've mentioned, I just think it's cool to try things and go for things and enjoy things. So I love Do You Think About Me? The album cover is gorgeous. It's this like sepia washed, like half portrait of his torso lying down with like holding a bouquet of dried flowers. You only see half of his face. And I love the mood that it captures of like being really enamored with someone and really just wondering if they're thinking about you the same way. I love that energy. And I am really motivated to check out some of his other stuff. So he has other songs that I think kind of follow sort of this same sad boy trend. So there's one called I Would Die, Bad at Getting Over It, Needed You, More Than You Needed Me. And then the first song that I have here is called Terrified. So, I think that's cool. So, he's also done a Taylor Swift cover, which I like. I'm not a huge Swiftie as in terms of like her fandom. Like, I would never call myself like a Taylor Swift like fan just because like her fan culture is not that approachable to me. But I do love a lot of her music, and I know I've mentioned this in previous episodes as well. But I really enjoy like a deeper, more baritone quality to a voice that I'm listening to. So I love when like typically men cover women's songs. I just love the way that sounds. And also vice versa. Like I love when like girl groups will cover boy group songs and kind of like get into their deeper register. Just because that's what's more pleasing for me to listen to personally. So yeah, Lahar, definitely check him out. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm gonna I think spend a little bit more time getting to know him a little better, and excited to see what he does next. All right. So the next artist I've been listening to a lot recently is, I think, kind of a exception or an outlier in this list. So his name is Tiny, and he is a producer and songwriter. He's Puerto Rican, and he has mostly like a reggaeton sound for the most part. That's like what he's been working on most recently. And I literally just found him like 2 weeks ago and been listening to his latest release called Data, and had never heard of him. Again, it was literally promoted to me on Instagram Reels. The EP or the album Data was what specifically was promoted to me on Instagram Reels, and I loved it immediately because the album cover is like an anime girl with wires hooked up to her neck. It's very like mecha dystopian future. She has pink hair. But the art style is really vintage for anime. So it's like that 80s, like almost like Nausicaa meets Neon Genesis Evangelion. And so I was really actually drawn into the aesthetics of the album cover. And I downloaded the album to Apple Music without ever having listened to it to like come back to it later. And I had no idea what to expect. I honestly thought it was just gonna be like a lo-fi playlist, like a study playlist, and I was pleasantly surprised. All of Tiny's songs are in Spanish as expected, and, again, it's like that audio engineering, like, synth produced, but, there's, like, this weight to it almost, and it's definitely not easy listening, but the album flows together extremely well, and I imagine it would DJ really well, and I really loved it and listened to it kind of on repeat while I was writing the other day. I'm working on a little like novella submission to try and get published, and I was just like grinding some words and listening to data on repeat. And so I thought Tiny was like, this like up and coming underground, you know, guy that I found on Instagram Reels, right? And so when I was doing research for this episode and looking up all the artists to kind of chat more about them, he is like a Grammy and BMI award-winning producer and works with Daddy Yankee and Cardi B and Bad Bunny. He is on Rock Nation and Interscope labels. Like, my mind was just completely blown, and it kind of reminded me that so many of the incredibly talented people working on the music that we all listen to every day are not necessarily public facing, and they're not people that we would necessarily know their names, right? So, I think producers, there's kind of this like pressure nowadays to be self-produced. I think I especially feel that way being in the K-pop world. A lot of K-pop groups now, in order to be competitive in the market, have to be self-produced. And so I sometimes draw this like false conclusion that like all artists are self-produced and like write all their own songs. But that's not true, and they're actually a completely different skill set. I think it's kind of silly and unrealistic that we've gotten into this expectation that everyone is self-produced and everyone's a songwriter, and that everyone can do it all. When someone might have an incredible voice and knack for performance, but like isn't a songwriter, and then we would be like missing out on that person's talent. So that was a really cool discovery that I found Tiny, and that he has produced and wrote like a ton of other amazing, like, chart-topping songs, and so, it's been really fun to kind of listen to the music that he makes for himself, 'cause Data sounds completely different from I Like It by Cardi B. Like, they're not even, like, similar, right? So, if you like that, kind of like synthwave meets, like, trap, rap style music, like, definitely check out Data by Tiny. Up next, we have a band called Pine Creek Academy. And they are self-described as a new pop punk slash alternative rock band from Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I'm pretty close to Allentown right now, so I thought that was pretty cool. Like they're sort of close by, and they have a really nostalgic pop punk sound. I wouldn't even actually say that they're doing anything new or like innovative in the pop punk genre. It's truly like what it says on the tin. It's very reminiscent of early 2000s, like the Academy is sort of vibes, but I love it, right? Like, I don't think that you necessarily have to be innovating a genre to be relevant. It can just be good because it's good, and it doesn't have to be that deep. It doesn't have to be that complex. I know I like to deep things a lot. I definitely have a tendency to do that, and I enjoy doing that. And I do like to feel really strongly connected to whatever it is I'm listening to, but it's not necessary for me to have a good time. So their debut EP is called Rewind, and I'm absolutely loving it. It has that like sleazy I'm a piece of shit on purpose kind of vibe, that I absolutely loved about, like, All Time Low back in the day. It's so much fun. Like, it really does take me back to, like, going to Warped Tour in 2012. So there's 5 songs on the EP, and it just came out not that long ago. And I think my favorite song is called Echo. It's the 4th track. And I'm really, really enjoying it. Again, I don't really know much about them other than they're from Pennsylvania and they have that like classic sound. But I've had the EP on repeat for like the last couple days. I'm really, really enjoying it. So definitely check them out, Pine Creek Academy. And again, it's kind of got that like all time low Academy is fusion flavor. It's really fun. The next artist I've been really enjoying is called King Quince. He is also pretty new, I would say. The album that I found of his is called Show's Over, and it just came out this year. And it's a full album, has 11 songs, which is amazing. It looks like his first single called Reliance came out in 2021. And I actually haven't listened to that yet. So he's only been making music for the last 2 years. Self identifies as a black rock star, which I think is amazing. Again, kind of like returning to the roots of what rock music was born from and kind of like taking back the essence of pop punk and alternative music for the black community who are the forefathers of this genre in the first place. And I am obsessed with his sound. Like, again, most of these artists I'm talking about, I found on Instagram Reels, and he was promoted to me with his song. I think it was New Amsterdam. Yeah, was promoted to me on Instagram Reels, and it like slapped me in the face. It was so good, like a gut punch almost, like that like swelling feeling in my chest that I want from a song. New Amsterdam, it like captured me immediately. Like the first like two or three notes on the Instagram reel, which I think speaks to two things. I think one, it speaks to his marketing team. He's managed by the company is called Casanova the Marauder. I mean, it looks like a single staff management company. It's like smaller, but their marketing team is amazing, like knowing exactly which clip of the song to promote for the reels so that people would find it. And then, but it also speaks to his incredible talent as a songwriter and as a musician, as a singer. And he has that, again, that like alternative pop punk mixed with like hip hop, rap, and trap fusion. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Machine Gun Kelly meets Lil Nas X. It's really really like an overlap of all the things that I love in a song, and I love the entire album. You know, it's like I said, it's 11 tracks. And some of the tracks are his single releases that he's added, almost like kind of like a repackage. But there's also a live version of one of the songs, which I think is awesome. And he performs. It looks like locally. I'm not 100% sure where he's based, but he does have live sessions and does do shows and things like that. And one of the things I love about his aesthetic, not just the music, but like his brand for all of his albums, there's like this high fantasy vaporwave aesthetic, which I'm very drawn to. I listen to vaporwave lo-fi playlists all the time. And I just think that he's really like if he doesn't explode and become like the next huge pop punk artist on the scene, like I will be so sad because I just think that he is doing amazing things. And it's going to be hard for me to choose which of his songs I want to include in my YouTube playlist for y'all because truly I love the whole album. So definitely listen to the whole album of Show's Over. What the other thing that I love about it is that Show's Over is like a complete project narrative as an album, which I really, really love. I am definitely the type of person that listens to albums in order and tries to figure out like the artistic vision and the goal of the album from start to finish. And I really feel like I'm being taken for a journey on Show's Over. So I would definitely listen to the whole thing, and I'll have to give some thought to the songs I'm actually going to add to the playlist for y'all. But I'm thinking probably 48 Floors in New Amsterdam because I think those were my two favorites. I'm going to try and select two from each of these to share. But yeah, so King Quince, he's Music's Future One on Instagram, and I am really, really enjoying his stuff right now, and I'm looking forward to whatever he makes next. I have two more for y'all, and the second to last one is a group called House and Home. And I've saved these last two because these last two are ones that I am considering actually being a part of like the fandom with a capital F for these last two groups. So I am truly enjoying the music for all of the artists that I've shared with you in this episode. But these last two groups I feel like have hooked their claws into me the same way that a lot of my favorite artists have in the past. Like I can feel it. I can feel the pattern developing within me. Of like I'm genuinely interested in following their career. I follow them on socials. I have notifications turned on. I feel connected to them in specific ways. So House and Home started in the summer of 2017, which I actually just found them like a month ago. And so I'm a little bit late to the party, but so again, new to me, not necessarily new, but they're an alternative rock outfit, and they are from Richmond, Virginia, which is the city that I was born in. So I'm always excited when I see artists blossoming from the South, like I mentioned earlier with Lahar, like he's from Atlanta. I just think that that's amazing, like, when artists come from the South, because I feel deeply connected to the South, rather than being from, like, LA or New York or whatever, or even, like, Nashville, which is, like, the LA of the South, right? Music capital. So, someone being from Richmond, that was really, really cool to me. I felt immediately connected to them, and they have this kind of, like, soft grunge aesthetic, but one thing I love is that they take pictures with like old architecture in Richmond with like florals, and it really does feel like coming home when I look at their Instagram, but also when I listen to their songs. So I'm very quickly becoming a huge fan. The other thing that I love about them is that they, in their bio, talk about working tirelessly to carve out a place for themselves in the music scene. And I feel like that kind of messaging always resonates with me, like that kind of scrappiness of like carving a space for you in industries that are so difficult to break into. There's always having a conversation about nepotism and things like that. And so, that really resonated with me. They DIY tour, so like they're in charge of all their own touring, and they just continue to like pack out like basement venues and clubs. And I just think that that's so cool, like a scrappy, like grassroots, like pop punk, alternative rock project. I love that. And I kind of similar to like I was saying with Wheelwright, like you don't have to be, you know, a stadium tour level famous musician to really thrive and do what you love. And I almost feel like that's better in many ways. Like even as a listener, but also as a creator, like cultivating an audience of people who are invested in what you're doing and really like and enjoy your project, and you can connect with them and really sustain that without the like insane parasocial pressure of being a multinational famous musician. Like if I was going to pursue a music career, that's what I would want. And so I'm really, really loving them. And so they kind of, in their own description, say that their sound is kind of adjacent to like Foo Fighters or like Taking Back Sunday. But I really feel like they have a unique identity already. I really like that they keep using this term like DIY, and that really comes through, and I really like that. I like the like grunginess of their sound. So the song that I love the most from them is called Empty Handed, and I am obsessed. I literally listen to Empty Handed every single day. And it came out in 2021, so it's 2 years old now, but truly, truly obsessed. Like it is a repeat song. And I'm really enjoying it. But they had a new EP come out last year in 2022 called Everything is Sacred. And so I'm gonna check that out. I haven't listened to it yet. I have just been looping Empty Handed over and over again. But I am excited to check out the 2022 EP. I'm sure I will like it. I also love their single Heat Seeker from 2020. And so I'm hoping they'll put out new music maybe this year or next year, just to keep the journey and the vision going. And I would love to catch a show of theirs in Richmond. I think that would be so cool. So again, House and Home. All right. So last, but in by no means least, is my top new group that I have been completely hyperfixated on, which is Loveless. I am being completely overrun, taken over in my brain by this band. I'm totally obsessed with them. So they are a LA based alternative rock emo pop duo, and they are Julian and Dylan. And they first got famous, like really like exploding from doing covers during COVID in 2020. They were like covering a lot of the songs that were going viral on TikTok at the time and doing like emo pop punk covers of songs. So the one that really, really blew them up was "Middle of the Night" by Ellie Duhay. I think that's how you pronounce their last name. And it is so fucking good. I've listened to Middle of the Night over and over again, their pop punk cover of it specifically. And they have so many covers on all of the streaming platforms. They also did a cover of Running Up That Hill because it got famous again, like re-famous from Stranger Things. And I just think that Julian's voice is going to define the emo pop punk genre of the 2020s, of this kind of like current era pop punk, this new era, if you will. He is one of the most amazing vocalists I've ever heard, like on par with like Patrick Stump level vocal prowess. His vocal color is so unique. Like I hear like one syllable and I know that it's Julian singing, and he's kind of like exploded in this new social media era kind of way, like from these covers. And him and Dylan have, I love their original music even more than their covers, which to me lets me know that they're really the real deal, right? Because like someone can make amazing covers, but then like if their original music is not great, then I might not stick around, or if it's not like again my cup of tea. um, and so Loveless actually also has a song with Kellen Quinn called Someone Else. And I really love that Kellen Quinn works with newer artists. I think that's really cool. As kind of like a legacy, like pop punk legend. And again, I love Julian and Kellen's voice together. Oh my gosh, it's a like a powerhouse combo. But I truly love every song that has been put out by Loveless so far. My favorites are actually their newest single, which is "I Hope I'm Not Sick," and then one of their older songs from 2020 that's called "Lighthouse." I have my finger on the pulse for Loveless. I really think that they are going places, kind of similar to King Quince. Like, I really think that both of them are going to be genre defining in the next couple of years. I think they're amazing. And what I love about Julian is that he has cultivated this really cool like online presence. He makes like YouTube shorts, TikToks, Instagram reels of him just singing alone in his home studio. And where I found him originally, and like the band overall, because like Dylan is also part of the band, but Julian's definitely like the face and the voice. But where I actually found him was I was listening to that new song, Chronically Conscious by Brendan Brails, that's like super popular right now. And my Instagram Reels algorithm uh, showed me the it was like a re-upload from TikTok where Brendan had posted the hook from Chronically Conscious and was like asking other artists to write their own verses and add it in, which Julian did from Loveless. He like wrote his own verse and then sang the hook into the chorus. And I really love Chronically Conscious anyway, like the original song, but the Loveless version, I truly felt like I was like ascending into outer space. Like it struck such a strong chord with me. It like made me like teary-eyed to listen to. And I was like, his voice is one of the only voices I want to hear from this day forth, right? So that's where I actually found him. And I at first thought he was just like, an Instagram creator, just was like singing on Instagram, making covers, whatever. Because there's a lot of people doing that, which I also love. But then when I realized he was actually in a band and they have albums and they tour, I was so stoked, and I actually missed their local show in my town, and I'm so sad. So I hope they go and tour again next year because I am really, really digging it. I love the music video for "I Hope I'm Not Sick," and something that Julian's been doing recently on his Instagram Reels is making covers of their original songs with like new flavors, like making like acoustic versions or like sadder, more emo versions of like their own music. And I can just tell that he absolutely loves what he does. He's really all in. He showed a process recently of recording all the layers that are in a Loveless song. And he even shared recently that one of their singles was inspired by a cosplayer. So he's kind of like marrying this very cool, like online digital community, like paving our own way in the entertainment industry, while also just has absolutely like prodigy level raw talent. He is incredible. And so I'm really loving Loveless. And I saved them for last, saved the best for last, because I am definitely tumbling headfirst into the Loveless fandom. And I'm going to follow them for a really long time. As long as they're making music, I'll be around. So that's all for this episode. I thought it was really fun to just share some of the new things I've been enjoying, take the nostalgia glasses off, and dive into some new content. So I would love if you could let me know what are some new things that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be music, but maybe a fandom that you've entered into in the last year that maybe was unexpected for you. I'd love to hear about it. So you can come hang out with me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. You can also always send me an email at getyourfixpod@gmail.com. As always, if you want to chat with me about a specific property or you have thoughts about one I've already covered, definitely send me an email. And I am always taking suggestions for episodes. I love to, as mentioned in this episode, I love to discover new things. So come join the community, and thank you so much for listening. I will catch you all in the next one to chat about our next hyperfixation.